Wake up, lazy bones. Why don't you work hard like me? Oh dear, he yawned. I shall never be the same again, he thought sadly. My wheels will be quite worn out. Thomas pushed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could. If Henry is ill, he thought, perhaps I shall pull his train. They're waving because I'm such a splendid engine, he thought importantly. Why, bless me, he said, if we haven't left them behind. I'm tired of pushing coaches. I want to see the world. Come on, he puffed. There's the station. Oh dear, what shall I do, he cried. I'd like to teach those trucks a lesson, said Thomas the Tank Engine. Bother those trucks and their tricks. I hope poor James isn't hurt. Oh, thank you, sir, said Thomas. I don't know what the Fat Controller would do without me to run this branch line. Here are your trucks, James, said Thomas. Have you got some bootlaces ready? Oh, come along, we're rather late. Oh, come along, we're rather late. Rubbish, said Thomas. You're too fat, you need exercise. Bother that signal, said Thomas. What's the matter? Every time he met another engine, he would say, I want to fish. Oh dear, groaned Thomas. I'm going to burst. I'm going to burst. Engines don't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable. What ugly wheels you've got. Huh! Snow is silly soft stuff. It won't stop me. Oh, my wheels and coupling rods. I shall have to stop here till I'm frozen. Help me, said Thomas. I can go faster than you. Oh, dear, thought Thomas. We've lost. I've done it, panted Thomas. Take my advice, scrap your tender and have a nice bunker. The Fat Controller sent for me. I expect he wants help, he said to Edward. The two coaches were so pleased to see Thomas again. Whoosh, said Thomas to Annie and Clarabel. Have you ever seen anything like it? But I don't catch cows, sir. Everyone will laugh, sir, said Thomas. They'll say I look like a tram. Phew, remarked Thomas. What a funny smell. Now for my plan, thought Thomas. Please get me out. I won't be naughty again. Oh, come on, said Thomas. Where's your festive spirit? Christmas Day is almost here. Do you realize it's a whole year since Mrs. Kindly saved us from a nasty accident? That's Terence, said Thomas. He's come to help too. Well, anyway, huffed Thomas, blue is the only colour for a really useful engine. Everyone knows that. Help! I'm choking! Now Percy has learned his lesson too. Thank you, Bertie, said Thomas. You're a very good friend indeed. What? Already? You're not that old, replied Thomas cheekily. Why, Edward could beat you in a race any day. Yes, of course, replied Thomas. But he was still puzzled. Now I understand how useful a traction engine can be. Well done, Percy. The Fat Controller is very pleased with us. Annie and Clarabel told him how well Duck had managed. Thomas was so pleased to be home that he soon forgot to be jealous. He tried to stop, but he couldn't without his driver and fireman. I need to stop, he panted wearily. Danger means falling down something, said Thomas. I went past danger once and fell down a mine. Thomas was helping to pull the trucks away when the Fat Controller arrived. Time's time, he grumbled. Why should I keep my passengers waiting while Henry and James dawdle about all day on viaducts? It's lucky for you I'm a guaranteed connection, grumbled Thomas. There are times when being late isn't such a bad thing after all. Silly stick in the muds, he chuckled. I'll show them. Driver said I could manage without him. Horrors! Cried Thomas and shut his eyes. Diesel, sir? Thomas spluttered. Annie and Clarabel were delighted to see Thomas again, and he took them for a run at once. Thomas's branch line is important, and so is Edward's. Huh, said Thomas. You're just a silly little engine. I'm not scared. Oh, dear, exclaimed Thomas. It's getting late. Oh, I'd no idea. Oh, I must find Annie and Clarabel. Time's time, and the Fat Controller relies on me to keep it. I can't if you crawl in the hay till all hours. Will we be able to sing carols too? Asked Thomas. It's no fun getting stuck in the snow, whispered Thomas to Percy, but it was worth it for this party.
All I want is a warm boiler, huffed Thomas. Firelighter knows that. He's late. I'm busy this evening, but the station master says I can ask you to take the children home. He's famouser than you, replied Thomas. He went 100 miles an hour before you were thought of. Something must be wrong, thought Thomas. This station is for goods, not passengers. Yes, Bertie, replied Thomas sadly. I can't run without my rails. Thank you for looking after my passengers. I was only pretending to be scared. I knew it was you, really. Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. It's a dragon. Listen, said Thomas. Can you hear a strange whistling sound? You look as if you've had a mud bath. Be a sensible engine. Have a shower instead. We're all useful. The Fat Controller says so, and he's Sir Topham Hatt, head of the whole railway. Thomas told him about James, and so here are your trucks. Driver said that the person in charge of the post has complained to the Fat Controller about the delay last night. Tonight, we'll just have to be quicker than ever before. Bad luck, Bertie, said Thomas. Now, if you were a steam engine, you would run on a pair of reliable rails. Don't worry, said Thomas kindly. I'll help out if you're ill. But my buffers, muttered Thomas. The day started so well, too. I think, replied Thomas, it's about being clever and wise. There's more than one way to get jammed. We all learned that today. Driver said there's lots of posts for the village, said Thomas. I'll need an extra truck for it all. Santa Claus is someone who drops presents down chimneys at Christmas time. Driver told me a story, said Thomas. And that, said Thomas, is the whole story. Did you like it? Be careful or you might run into danger. And Duke is not here to save you. Good morning, whistled Thomas. Your driver looked a little worried. Thomas was feeling a little jealous. It may be famous, but my branch is first on the line. Everyone knows that. Well, bust my boiler, said Thomas the Tank Engine. Thomas and Toby were speechless. Everyone came to say goodbye to Stepney. Come back and see us soon. Never mind, Henry, murmured Thomas. I think you were brave today and really reliable too. Thomas, Duck and Percy were shocked. Be quiet, they ordered. Bust my buffers, look over there. The Fat Controller thinks I'm really useful. I had a race with Bertie once. I whooshed through the tunnel and stopped an inch from the buffers. Oh, thank goodness you're still here, panted Thomas. I hope the Fat Controller forgives us soon. When it was time to leave, the Queen spoke specially to Thomas, who fetched her coaches. Fish can be awfully smelly, and I know what I'm talking about. Yes, indeed, agrees Thomas. You're a really useful postman. Rubbish, said Thomas. We always arrange our trucks like this, and no crane has ever complained before. Don't move, you're still attached to Cranky. Well, the brothers Grimm smashed, broken, and sunk. What sort of something? Asked Thomas. Good luck, called Thomas. Why, James, I'm the one who needs a new coat. We engines must pull together, whatever the weather. If Firelighter says there are gremlins, there are, insisted Thomas. I'm sorry, a cow strayed on the line and we had to wait for the farmer to take her away. But driver says your visitor is here safe and sound. Excuse me, sir, but who is your very important visitor? Just ignore him, puffed Thomas. And then you'll be just as rude as ever. Eh, George? My favourite station is Farquhar, said Thomas. Put upon? What a silly saying, replied Thomas. I'm sorry we teased you, Percy, said Thomas. You were certainly put upon by that avalanche. Apparently it's teething troubles, confided Thomas to Percy. The old warrior ghost. Every night he lights his fire, then goes hunting. Toot toot, goodbye. Phew, sniffed Thomas. What a pong! Come on. Your driver says it's time for a nice hot washdown. Everyone's so much happier when springtime comes, said Thomas happily. Why don't you use the water in our tanks? We've just refilled them. I'll see what I can do, replied Thomas kindly. The engines think the special visitor is here to see if we can be replaced by Harold, he replied. Did you like your kiss? Replied Thomas. Thomas was most upset. You won't let them turn Annie and Clarabelle into beach huts, will you? Thomas was cross. James, why don't you think about something or someone else for a change? You'll be surprised at how much better you'll feel if you do. Why? Asked Thomas. What's the funny part about an avalanche? Asked Thomas. Don't worry. Sometimes it takes time to make new friends. This is new, puffed Thomas, but he had spoken too soon. Oh dear, Thomas said, I'll be late. Thomas was cross. And you're just an old sentinel lorry, he retorted. She's for it now, said Thomas to his driver. Oh, shivered Thomas as he ran over the detonator. That made my axles tingle. If there's no fog warning, said Thomas, he'll run into us. Look out for Max, Thomas added. He's trouble. Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. Please, sir, my plough is awkward and uncomfortable. Do I have to wear it? Big, horrid, awkward thing, Thomas grumbled. But the villagers need their tree, said Thomas. Let me try again. I'm sure I can make it. Won't you miss one another? He asked. I know I'd miss Annie and Clarabelle. He moves more trucks than 3 diesels put together, agreed Thomas. Careful the ghost engine doesn't get you, Thomas said. The ghost engine is after me! Thomas likes his branch line. A hot air balloon, said Thomas. It will take holidaymakers on rides around the island. Oh, no, James, cried Thomas. You saved the hot air balloon. You'd better hurry, teased Thomas, or Scary Jack Frost might get you. Everyone makes mistakes, said Thomas. Even you. You look good enough to eat, Thomas hooted. But I have to be squeaky clean, huffed Thomas, so you'll just have to wait. I'm sorry I called you dirty, Percy, said Thomas. Hurry up, huffed Thomas. This is a special. Oh, said Thomas. Hi, Gordon. Bye, Gordon. Retired, said Thomas. Means taken out of service.